It's our last full day of papers for the conference. And the first presentation we have is from Wook Park, who has a PhD in theology from Yonsei University in South Korea and is currently lecturing on the philosophy of religion and AI humanities as a research professor at the United Graduate School of Theology at Yonsei University.
Thanks for introducing me. Well, all right. Okay, I'll start. As you'll know, Aristoteles' book Nicomachean and Ethics has wrote a lot of virtue in detailed accounts, and continuously Aquinas brought in principal concepts into his arguments. But I will mainly talk about Aquinas this time, and we'll talk about Summa Theologiae, especially part 2, section 1. Aquinas critically inherits and deepens the debate of Aristotle virtue ethics, which is now one of the central origins of Western ethics as a practical sub-principle of Christian faith. So I tried to bring in Aquinas, the book of Aquinas, Summa Theologiae, especially part 2, section 1, and question 55, which discusses the meaning of virtue as the limitness of actuality. And in question 56, he argues about the complementary relationship between virtue and reason. So while I proceed my presentation, I will tell you why I am bringing these up. So I like to focus on the central connection between Christian value, Christian virtue, and AI ethics, demonstrating how Christian understanding of humanity can provide meaningful ethical insights in today's and tomorrow's development of AI. All right, so we have subheadings, 7 subheadings, but I will just say number one. Number one, Aquinas' virtue, the utmost of a power. He talked about the utmost of a power, which he tried to tell the actuality of excellence, arete, or goodness. And according to Aristotle's definition, virtue refers to the actuality of excellence or goodness that each person should, discover and practice in their lives. Aquinas quotes Aristotle's definition of virtue as the utmost of power and specifies that virtue is both the ultimate aim of human life and the ultimate point to which a power can attain. So the power is, well, as you all would know, refers to potentiality. And potentiality in Greek is energeia and dynamis. So pushing the self towards its perfection, the actuality. So we need the power. So he's talking about the utmost of a power in order to get to the level of actuality. Right, and then he talks about God's goodness is perfect and holy himself. It refers to God. He is infinite in quality, quantity, and temporal scope. But contrarily, all finite beings have respective limitations of excellence and goodness. He keeps on his debate. He keeps on his argument, talking about all finite beings, including humans, striving towards God's infinite goodness. As I told you, like, the actuality of excellence. He is keeping on talking about and explaining about this part, but due to their own finitude, because we're not God, they inevitably encounter some limitations in realizing goodness. So to Aquinas, God regulates his creatures' quality and quantity of excellence and grants them the disposition to practice it. So number 2. Limited potentiality of AI. I didn't change the title, but I changed it to ontic limitations of AI. Well, I think it's the same thing. I think it's the same thing. Yeah. Okay, I'll keep on going. An intelligent being detached from living phenomena. I think I missed out reduction of living phenomena to a digital object because I had to introduce what AI does while while the AI encounters the real world, he had to abstract and then, bring the information into it. But anyway, I will just talk from here. Okay. Yes, we talk about AI detached from living phenomena means that it came up with Luciano Floridi, who is, I think he's an Oxford professor, having I think he is like working at a ethical center of AI inside Oxford University. He puts that AI do not directly or intuitively sense and perceive the living phenomena. So what he has to do, what the AI has to do is to abstract the information from the real world and then symbolize it and patternize it through linguistic and mathematical means for statistical calculations, so computational calculations. So in that sense, I wrote that intelligence being detached from living phenomena. And so the artificial agents deal with events in cyberspace with great efficiency. There are strengths and weaknesses. And AI has significant, like strong points in text that are confined with a computer or cyberspace, such as AlphaGo, as you all know, image processing, video processing, algorithm design and evaluation, and various simulation. The performance of AI far surpasses human capabilities. But also there are weaknesses, significant weaknesses in dealing with problems in the real world, having full of random variables and complicated phenomena. This weakness is a fundamental limitation of AI, which cannot provide intuitive and direct response to the phenomena which comes from the world. So we have like representatively three big problems, such as like frame problems and ambiguity tolerance and non-ethicality. And AI has frequently get confused of the distinguishing human from non-human objects. So like these kind of problems are always caused by AI. Right, and third, so what do we do now? So I thought I had to bring in Aquinas' virtue in order to like establish what virtuous AI could be. So habituation, the term habituation, I think it came from Cicero. I wrote it in my paper, but it was more like twisted and advanced by Aquinas. And nowadays, neuroscientists are using this terminology too. So to develop and operate more virtuously as a virtuous AI, I thought we could pay attention to some characteristics of virtue that Aquinas had proposed. That one of them is habituation. So habituation is about a habit that cultivates praxis, which is the model is excellence. Yeah, this comes from question 56. And also Aquinas focused on two unique spiritual excellences of the human soul, which is episteme and phronesis. Phronesis refers to moral excellence, as I just told you, and one can attain it through continual reflection and practice on good and evil, right or wrong, in interaction with others. Well, not all habits are virtues that lead to moral good, but an act as a repetition for actualization is associated. It associates not only with moral good, but also with all kinds of excellence. So we're talking about moral excellence here. There are lots of excellences which one would go through and can attain it. And one of them is rational habituation, which leads to episteme and intellectual excellence. There are lots of excellences. One of them is intellectual excellences. So Aquinas brings these two concepts to his argument, and I focused on it. But goodness is achieved through moral habituation. That's what Aquinas has said. So Aquinas emphasizes the uniqueness of phronesis. The uniqueness of phronesis lies in the fact that it achieves moral good. Phronesis is most complete excellence as it connects humans directly to the divine goodness. Aquinas argues that the most complete excellence is phronesis. When this is achieved through a habit of knowing and desiring God's transcendent excellence and goodness, and making judgments and actions accordingly, you could attain that level of excellence. In other words, Aquinas holds the position that it is impossible for humans to achieve true moral excellence without faith in God and inspiration from God. So this separates him from Aristotle's philosophy, because he brings in faith in God and inspiration from God. So I hope you understand the differences. And now, so why do we need this kind of reflection? Because we want to adapt it to AI. That's what I'm doing here. And so I brought in number 4, which is about habituation of deep learning AI. So this habituation is not moral habituation. This habituation is rational habituation. So how is AI technology relate to Aquinas's insights into phronesis and habit? All forms of artificial agents performing machine learning, I think, inherently perceive and objectify phenomena through specific types of intellectual habits. They do have, right? So artificial agents mimic the intellectual habits, which is deep learning through deep learning. And it is very necessary for humans to acquire episteme. But Aquinas will still think that AI cannot have the habit of pursuing moral excellence, because this is rational habituation, and this is just episteme. Episteme is not good for phronesis. So he brings in phronesis. So what do we do here now? He talks within Aquinas's theology. I couldn't find moral habituation within AI. So for Aquinas, goodness is a purpose which God communicates and endows to humans who possess a complete self-consciousness and free will. Human beings, only beings with a firm self-consciousness, can know and desire their respective God-given purposes. Presently, AI has no self-consciousness, right? So we were kept on talking about the consciousness level of AI and whether AI could have unconsciousness or not. So I think so. So regarding Aquinas would think that way too. So what do we do now? I think at present, AI technology has not reached the point where artificial agents can have the human level self-consciousness. So it is uncertain whether they can have it someday in the future. Well, we could get to the level of the singularities, and we could anticipate forthcoming of the AGI, but I don't think that is realistic now. So AI is not yet capable of achieving moral goodness on its own. This one I want to talk about it till number 4 and number 5. So what is urgent? What do we have to do to develop virtuous AI? Well, some of the researchers would say AI would never possess virtue, but I'm trying to twisting it in another way and circumvent it, the traditional way of dealing virtue. I want to adapt. I want some sort of I want to blend in some philosophical and theological aspects and insights into this terminology of virtue. So I'm trying to do that. So I thought that there was a dilemma here, and the dilemma is a virtueless being's virtue. I want a new virtue which this being does not have any consciousness. And so in Aquinas's term, we can't, the AI couldn't have moral habituation. I thought it was virtueless, but still we should make the virtue and try the virtue come out and be with AI. So I thought it could be alternative for a virtuous AI. Well, according to Aquinas' discussion, AI is defined as an intelligent being that cannot have moral virtue, of course. However, what I think is that we cannot simply leave AI as a virtueless being, because there are some reasons. Because humanity nowadays are seeking to entrust their future lives to AI technology. So we are anticipating AI technology to come into our lives, to like adapt to the new technology. And now we're doing this now. I have a friend, professor, yeah, he teaches business. And I sometimes meet him and I tell him about the negative aspects of AI, because you know, you guys are doing wrong job. You're always like, you know, pursuing money and everything. And he said, I don't want to talk with you. And the reason why is that you always have negative aspects of AI, and the world is not not turning around like that. So I think I try to make a step of virtue, which could be adapted to nowadays technological AI development stage. So I think I came from there. I think that AI must become virtuous AI, but the current situation engenders a dilemma, always a dilemma. So what do we do now? And because AI is granted partial or fragmented autonomy from humans, AI algorithms will receive human free will in a fragmented and a partial manner, and which would lead the AI to a probabilistic randomness. And this probabilistic randomness is very it endangers like the environment. It endangers even the human beings and all the nature. And Jung brought up with co-creator creator. I don't think we could just treat AI as a companion right now, but we're in the stage where the upcoming stage will come in the future when we could really think AI as a companion. So there's a lot of dilemmas here. So what should we do? Therefore, I think AI does not possess self-consciousness, but the problem is it will have autonomy, and it will exercise the autonomy to with the delegated free will. So this, I think, could be one of the problems now. So in this case, I think that AI must become a virtuous AI in this sense. Okay, so we'll go to number 6. Emotional AI as a potential alternative is so. What technological methods can be used to implement this unique virtue of AI? So I said unique because AI without self-consciousness, but having partial autonomy. Yes, so that was my main issue, which I want to bring it up in my paper. Considering the current level of AI technology development, I thought that emotional AI, which is EAI, would deserve some attention as one of the technologies for the future development of virtuous AI. So I'm bringing up EAI, which is emotional AI. And emotional AI employs deep learning technology, receiving human facial expressions and body temperature, heart rate, gestures, tone of voice, vocabulary, and etc., and like physical tone and signs, And we would like use them as an input value. And then it could, through these input values, we could judge the human emotional state and produce output values, and then select corresponding responsive strategy based on each emotional states. So emotional AI will be possible to have less detached, I wrote here, less detached interactions, whereas I told you that we needed since AIs would interact with the real world, they had to abstract lots of information from the phenomena. But if we think of emotional AI would have less, we could lessen the level of abstraction. So I think it's could be an alternative. The phenomena that emotional AI primarily deals with the expression, as I said, of human emotions, and it also has a directness without any further abstracted elements. So it has the strong strength here. An effective way to make AI recognize the reality of human life as close to its actual state as possible is to provide human emotional reactions as input values. Okay. Learning the feeling of sublimity. So I'm bringing up this terminology may help to design virtuous AI. This is my suggestion. The next key question would be how do you employ emotional AI to enable artificial agents to judge and act upon goodness? One possible approach is to teaching the feeling of sublimity, which does constitute the religious basis of human moral virtue. Yes, that's my suggestion. And the feeling of sublimity is an emotional admiration for divine goodness. Yes, Aquinas here characterizes the feeling of sublimity as an emotional admiration for moral good that transcends oneself. Well, there are lots of meaning of transcend in philosophical field, but I want to use the term transcends, which Aquinas had used. Aquinas is using like when you get overwhelmed by the divine goodness, then you could just go off beyond yourself. So I think transcend means like going off beyond yourself. And he quoted this statement: admiration is a type of fear which follows the knowledge of something that surpasses our powers. Hence, it is the consequence of the contemplation of a sublime truth. That he used this statement. The feeling of sublimity awakens a moral sense, which corresponds to one's raison d'être. It's the reason of existence, directed by the transcendent, who is God. So I think in this regard, emotional AI can be applied to virtuous AI. So then how are we going to adapt this to virtuous AI? Well, since I'm not a computer scientist, but I try to understand what they are using, the mathematical calculations and the coding stuff. So I thought that we could abstract the religious emotion of sublimity into digital signal and pattern it within a neutral network. And I thought that AI might imitate human awareness of divine moral good among the phenomena of human relationships. So I thought the human relationships, among human relationships, I can draw the divine revelation. And this kind of argument can be backed up by Aquinas and Bonifer, which I'm trying to like blend Bonifer into a good Aquinas and associate the two ideas to draw to elicit the concepts and notions from these two scholars. Aquinas believed that the ontological understanding of the perfection of creatures can become an analogical understanding of God's existence, which is analogia entis. And Bonifer is talking about analogia relationis, which refers to like you can have direct and concrete relationship with other persons, while through that relationship, we could say that there's an analogical revelation of God's ethical commandments. This came from Bonhoeffer. So why not? I mean, why not? Why can't AIs could have this kind of goodness in them, and we could call them virtuous AIs. And we can say that emotional admiration for others' alterity is a form of divine revelation in the world, of course. The other is completely different from ourselves. So the other is transcendent because the self cannot arbitrarily depose of the other's alterity. So I brought in those kind of defined statements within our modern philosophy and theology, and I try to blend it in together. When the self perceives this transcendence, it receives the divine revelation that one could admire and perceive the alterity. Well, it's a Bonhoefferian, it could lead us to Levinasian thought. But I won't go further on because I just want to stick to Aquinas and Bonhoeffer. So through this kind of communication and human relationship, humans learn this ethical responsibility by interacting with others in human society. So I thought that we could bring on to this to virtuous AI. And also, lastly, I want to talk about human emotion with AI, drawing out a behavioral response that complies with divine ethical commandments. And there could be like various answers to this question, but I believe that designing an empathetic AI that responds to vulnerable emotions such as human suffering, fear, and anxiety, I think it could be another alternative way to develop virtuous AI. Okay, thank you for listening.
Yes, Rachel.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm really taken, especially with your idea about your discussion of having emotion in AI. I just wanted to ask you a bit more about that. I see your idea that we need to somehow encode emotion. And you write about maybe finding a logic for emotion. But at the moment, I feel like what you've described is a way of AI recognizing emotion in others, but not necessarily is that all a sort of input-output thing. But I wonder for people like Aquinas, or you mentioned Kant and others, it seems like there's more to emotion than that, especially maybe a sort of embodied aspect or the feeling of emotion, what it feels like to have emotion on the one hand. On the other hand, especially with the sublime, it's really interesting that in all these cases that you mentioned, people talking about the sublime, there's this idea of sort of hitting against your limits and being overwhelmed or anxious. And I wondered especially like, what would that look like? What would be that limit for AI? How would AI be able to be encoded and have reached that limit? Especially as we usually think of it as kind of having huge processing power and not really having sort of those cognitive limits. So yeah, just one aspect is there more to emotion than input-output recognition, and is there more to sublimity, and what would that look like?
Well, thank you for your comment. I think, well, what I try to write this in my paper is try to write and think according to the stage level of AI technology. So nowadays, AI technology, we talk about AGIs, but we're really, really far from that stage. So what I try to do is like, I met a lot of like coding engineers and also like computer science that they were talking about. You guys talk about ethics and you think AI is a man. You think AI is one of a mankind. And yet you even talk about super intelligence and singularity. Wow, that's so far from. You guys talk about a very wide range of AI, but we don't want that. So I thought, well, last year I read a book which was written by I think it was, I forgot the book, but he was talking about that the humanities professors and humanities people were talking too much of AGI. Yeah, I read a book. So I thought that, okay, so what should I do now? As you have said, emotional AI, of course, we have to like, you know, do all of the mathematical computational calculations and give algorithms in order to recognize, you know, human being. But we are always positing that AI could one day be an AGI, and then we're always talking on that level. So what I wanted to do is that it could be a very realistic approach, and I try to maintain the level of argument in that stage. So you could think that, you know, we could talk more deeper with emotions and also like sublimity. But I think it's, well, I'll just close here to open and close here. Thank you for your question.
Yes. I mean, it seems that there are, I find it a little bit contradictory in when you mention about the limits of deep learning in the first part of your paper, that, you know, there is, for example, you said in page 4, deep learning AI has significant weakness in dealing with problem situation. And I mean, in the world full of random variables and complicated phenomena. Also, you said in the same page, if a deep learning AI is to function properly as originally intended in the real world, it must be operated in a controlled environment with as many random variables removed as possible.
Yeah.
I'm not very sure whether this is the case. I mean, the recent deep learning, the achievement in deep learning is a little bit more than that, because it just analyzed the random data. They collect a random data, and then somehow they learn it, and it seems that it covers some of the randomness of the word. I mean, at least it mimics to cope with the randomness of the word. Now, well, that's one part, but at the end, towards the end, you're saying that by facial recognition and other data collection of human expression of emotion, deep learning might be able to kind of catch some of these. AI might be able to pattern human emotion by facial expressions and other data. But isn't emotion the most random parts of the human activities? I mean, on the when people are confronted with the same situation, people have different emotions. So how could AI patternize all this and use it to make itself virtuous? It seems that I mean, this AI seems to be very, very advanced compared with the AI that you mentioned in the first part of the paper. And also there is a issue of behaviorism. It seems that you are suggesting that all these emotions can be kind of catched by the visible data or recognizable data by AI. So I'm not very sure how these two different possibilities coexist. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, I don't know the exact meaning what you all said, but I think you're bringing some kind of questions on. I was talking like this and that here and there, but I think it's very contextual, and we have a wide range of understanding AIs, but I'm trying to stick to nowadays technological trend. And through the technological trend, we could talk about emotion just like human beings, but now EAI is not on that level. So I'm trying to speak, well, you talked about variable randomness. Variable randomness has to be like eradicated for the computer scientist. So on that point, I wrote that. But before that, I wrote that in general, the AIs, the computer scientists would think that there are so many variable randomness, and it's very difficult for them to adapt the coding process and to like corresponding to all the surroundings there. So I try to like talk about that part, and then they're trying to eradicate and try to get rid of the obstructions which are within their development. So I was trying to match these two and try to like persuade that there are two situations, different situations. And that was the first question. The second question was, you were asking about the confinement of emotion. So as I said, emotion has a variety steps and stages and sources within human being, but when we just talk about AI of nowadays technological trend, they don't have any consciousness, so they should start with facial expressions and all the stuff which I have told you. So I was trying to explain the stages that they are going through. So
yes, I agree that we need to stick to the current level of technological development instead of talking too much about AGI. I totally agree with that.
Yes.
But the thing is that because of the limit of AI that you mentioned in the first part, it might be very difficult to catch emotions because you need to abstract a little bit too much about this random expression of human emotion.
Yeah, I have a different opinion on that, because we're still having Sophie into the world. We're having like you could see the AI, they express their anger and they can talk back to human beings. There are AIs, right? I forgot their names, but I only remember Sophia. But we have lots of AIs even nowadays, like from other companies, I think from Google and all the other, there are like in the form of body, there are AIs and they talk, they use their facial expression, they have communications with human beings. So yes, it is partially mimicking and following and corresponding to human nature, but I still think that it is a very important experimental thing we have to do to catch up for the AIs to when they confront the real world. So that's my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
So our next presenter is Daekyung, who has a Master's of Divinity from San Francisco Theological Seminary and a PhD in Systematic and Philosophical Theology from the Graduate Theological Union. And currently he's serving as assistant professor at Seoul University in Korea, teaching courses such as Science, Religion and Science, Human Civilizations and Christianity, and Korean Theology.
Anyway, first of all, I'm delighted and grateful to be able to participate in this project and present my work. Over the past few years, I have been closely following the discourse on trans and post-humanism and have published related articles. This research on artificial intelligence has provided an opportunity for me to discuss the present rather than focusing solely on the distant future. Then trans and posthumanism pretty much has worked on. Of course, as you can see from reading it, my paper still discusses aspects related to the future though. Since we have about 10 minutes each for individual presentations and then plan to have a discussion afterwards, I don't think I'll be able to go into all the details of my paper. Instead, I'll briefly remind everyone that I assume you have read my paper. So anyway, this article engages two inquiries. First one is it theoretically plausible for artificial intelligence to exhibit religious behavior? And second question is, assuming the technological feasibility for AI to display such behavior, should we aspire to design and instantiate such an artificial religious agent? Addressing the first question, my argument is affirmative. However, the second question necessitates a more public discourse concerning the nature and direction of AI development we should pursue, as it is inextricably linked to the discussion of artificial general intelligence. The concept of religious behavior by artificial intelligence mentioned in the first question refers to the discussion in the latter part of my paper about the 4 levels or categories of religious behavior that AI could exhibit. Scholars in the field of AI and religion, such as Noreen Hirschfeld, seems to have reservations about the so-called singularity, and most of our participants here too might share that kind of skepticism. However, there are also AI scholars who hold different views. Therefore, I believe it is worth exploring the potentiality that is somewhat overlooked, that is the emergence of conscious AI and the possibility of religious behavior that could arise from it. Additionally, when considering the possibility of such AI, the question arises as to whether we should develop such AI. That is why I included this question as the second point addressed in my paper. Running to the main discussion, the reason I hold a positive view on the first question, which pertains to whether artificial intelligence can become autonomous beings with human-like consciousness, is that I see more similarities than differences between living organisms and AI based on artificial bodies. So we should bodies for that kind of AI. If an AI based on an artificial body is given the ultimate goal of self-preservation, which is one of the essential characteristics of living organisms, I believe just as conscious humans emerged from living organisms, conscious AI can also emerge from AI at the current moment. This line of thinking draws inspiration from the Chilean biologists Umberto Maturana and Francisco Varela, who understand the phenomenon of life as cognitive actions aimed at self-preservation. They posit cognition as the crux of life phenomena. Accordingly, intelligence is construed as the capability to process information required for the self-preservation of an informational agent, that is a living organism. Organisms driven by self-preservation are subject to the influence of a changing environment. As an organism interacts with its environment, the organism's internal structure undergoes alterations. These modifications yield responses to external stimuli that differ from prior reactions. Maturana and Varela elucidate this process to explain the behavior of organisms. Please remind yourselves with some examples written in my paper, such as the structural changes of the water buttercup under certain environmental changes. Hence, the difference in behavior of organisms from humans and other higher animals to simpler neural systems and plants is one of quantity, not quality. I have put at the bottom of page 5 of my paper as follows. Human cognitive actions may also seem unique due to subjective experiences and sensations, such as qualia. But if these subjective experiences or sensations based on qualia do not cause any differences in human behavior, in other words, if the top-down causality of consciousness is not the cause of human behavior, then the cognition and responsive actions exhibited by single-celled organisms may not be substantially different from those of humans. By this argument, religious behaviors displayed by higher animals, including humans, can be perceived as originating from the interaction between an organism's fundamental self-preserving characteristic and its environment, a viewpoint that aligns with the assertions of researchers studying religious phenomena from an evolutionary perspective. I discussed this aspect in pages 6 through 8 of my paper, where I highlighted that the three main positions discussed in evolutionary studies on the origins of religion are all directly or indirectly associated with the human drive for self-preservation. If this argument holds, by assigning to AI the primordial and ultimate goal of self-preservation that living organisms possess, and by providing AI with a body that shares the vulnerability of living organisms, religious behaviors can arise from AI. To illustrate this, I first examined Bostrom's discussion and then explored Noreen Halsfeld's critique. One of our main criticisms regarding the possibility of singularity was disembodiment. However, I believe that this critique can be addressed through the arguments presented by Mann and Damasio that I'm employing in my paper. Specifically, Mann and Damasio argue that an artificial intelligence robot endowed with a homeostatic purpose of self-preservation based on a vulnerable body would be able to quantitatively calculate the extent to which external stimuli pose a threat to their self-preservation by comparing and evaluating these stimuli with their internal states. This external stimulus and internal recursive evaluation and judgment can enable a kind of quasi-feeling, leading to subjective experiences in artificial intelligence that are similar to human sensations. If that is the case, if the intelligent characteristics of artificial intelligence can evolve into higher order conscious acts, then it is possible that self-awareness of their finitude and religious cognition and behavior based on that awareness could emerge. Thus far, I have addressed the first of the two questions posed in this paper, and as I delved into the second question, I concluded the paper. As mentioned earlier, the second question is as follows. If the emergence of artificial general intelligence and its religious behavior is theoretically possible, should we foster such an agent's development? First, I categorized artificial religious agents into 4 types as follow. One is a religious impact agent, and implicit and explicit religious agents and full religious agents. The first three levels of ARAs represent weak AI, whereas the fourth level constitutes strong AI. In this sense, the development of ARAs from the first to the third level may not pose a problem as such agents are machines that help strengthen human religious behaviors. However, an ARA of the last level would possess agency equivalent to a human, including consciousness, free will, and intentionality. Ultimately, this issue is intertwined with the development of AGI. If we desire AI to be a sort of tool functioning as a servant to humans, we should be critical of the development of AI in the manner suggested by Damasio and others. That is, developing AI capable of experiencing feelings that living organisms possess, based on self-preservation and vulnerability. However, if we wish for AI to surpass the status of a tool and take its place as a partner to humans, we must strive to recognize such AI as an independent entity, allow it to learn religious traditions and scriptures, and thus enable it to perform religious behaviors. Initially, I held the position that developing self-conscious artificial intelligence should be prohibited. However, from a realistic perspective, even if we try to prevent such attempts technologically or legally, if the technology comes to be available, some might still pursue such direction, as we saw from the incident of Dr. Hojenkwi. The application of CRISPR-Cas9 technology onto embryonic cells. If that is the case, I believe it is necessary for us to contemplate the possibility of the emergence of such artificial intelligence and critically examine it. Thus, my initial intention of writing the paper shifted toward a conclusion that the development of artificial intelligence capable of consciousness, accompanied by human relational desires and curiosity, might happen. If that were to happen, I believe we need to prepare theologically to treat such artificial intelligence as a distinct personal entity. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. I just have a practical question because I'm curious to what you say that there needs to be a human-like body that is contingent in a way, and I'm just curious, what is it about existing technology that also isn't contingent? Eschatologically speaking, between entropy and the heat death of the universe, there's going to be a point where computers will no longer be able to function, but also between being able to be unplugged, things, vulnerabilities that need patched, I would argue that computers already exist in a contingent sort of life in which their existence can be threatened similarly to biological bodies. So I'm just curious if that makes any sort of impact on the perspective that you're building here.
Oh, thank you. The contingency or vulnerability, I would prefer the second term, is because I should have incorporated much other works that I have read, but I didn't have chance to revise my draft. But certain artificial intelligence and robotic experimentation had been performed by some Japanese robotists and artificial intelligence scholars, and they built up some artificial rodent that is supplying themselves with energy source based on the reward algorithms. And that research I have in my mind. And then Damasio and Mann also mentioning those kind of empirical data, and they are suggesting to build artificial intelligence with embodiment that is vulnerable. So based the basic presumption that Mann and Damasio are sharing is that the neural network that living organisms basically inclined toward self-preservation, that is homeostasis, and then external stimuli is given to the living organism, then that stimuli is processed mechanically inside the living organism. And in that sense, living organism and artificial machine, which is going to be built upon the similar neural network, of course, artificial neural network, and then they have a certain kind of body, then they can process that kind of information just as the living organisms do. Then those kind of external stimuli can be judged recursive and internally by machine quasi-organism. So that kind of vulnerability, I'm not talking about just existential contingency or ontological contingency. I'm not saying that, but that kind of vulnerability that can be sensed by machine process can lead to the emergence of fake living organisms based on machine body. I don't know if I make sense to you.
No, that's a helpful clarification. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Wachel?
A very simple question is what about animals? They have body, they have certain level of consciousness, they have the instinct of self-preservation, and there are a lot of external stimuli. But we don't see exhibition of religious character in animals, and or if they exhibit it, I mean, if we think about evolution, it took a long time for human being to exhibit a religious character. So if what's the difference between AI robots and animals in that sense? Why shall we worry if that takes so long time?
Okay,
in the case of animals, yeah.
Thank you for the question. And basic answer, a simple answer to the question might be the complexity. Information processing system, I should say that maybe it must be brain to a human being. It must be a CPU or GPU, whatever the center that processes information. So we are talking about human-guided evolution of artificial intelligence. So basically, we are going to building up so much complex intelligence based on our technology. So, and that is one point to the question. And the second point is, I'm working on the origins of religion in the evolutionary perspectives, and religious behaviors are not emerging. religious behaviors emerged, did not emerge out of all of a sudden when Homo sapiens, you know, everybody would guess. So there is a certain kind of continuity between animals and humans too. So if we build up artificial intelligence from the stage of Homo sapiens onward, then that kind of continuity can be more complex than animals' neural complexity. So I don't know. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I actually reminded me some articles about religious AI, and myself actually published my article in English, Religious AI as an option to the risks of superintelligence by Theologian and Science. So actually, I think that for the practical reasons, we need to aim at developing religious AI, or as you say, artificial religious agent. So it's another question, but it's kind of my comments or suggestion. Don't you feel that you need to make a stronger argument about religious AI or artificial religious agent to discuss about future issues or any expectations about some risks risks in the future? Like, just, concluding like, maybe or something like that. Don't you feel that you need to make a stronger religious AI is actually needed? That's my comments or thoughts.
First of all, as I mentioned in my presentation, I didn't want to be like science fiction guy. That was my intention. Even though I'm pretty much interested in metaphysical aspects of artificial intelligence and transhumanism and posthumanism, but I'm not a computer scientist, and I'm not a scientist at all, but I'm working on learning these scientific explanations and development. But in terms of transhumanism and posthumanism, I don't know if I might be wrong, but from my observation, we have talked too much about science fiction scenarios, and okay, it is meaningful. At least we can prevent certain direction of AI development and transhuman technology. But coming back to, so when I was doing some transhumanism works, I actually didn't go too that far. I tried it. I tried to pull them down from the too far future stuffs onto the present. So after, even though I'm still working on, after researching on trans and posthumanism, I came back to artificial intelligence researches to prepare this conference. And then I found myself that so many scholars here on artificial intelligence are focusing on too much present stuff. So I wanted to make a balance between the two, how do I say, conversations and research topics. So that is why I'm working on this possibility of artificial religious agents.
Thank you, both of you. Interesting. But I want you both going to debate. So the part bring from ancient Christian position, and Jung is bringing up to the future, but you argue each other different way. I think the part is quite negative to have religious AI, but Daekyung is sound affirmative. So let me first ask, Jung, you try to raise question to Park. So first you go ahead your question to Park, and also I ask Park, you respond to Jung's position. So let us hear a very interesting debate here.
I don't want to argue against anybody here. So I would like to dismiss what you have asked, both of us. But first of all, I'm not professional in terms of judging whether AGI is possible or not. So going back to the previous discussion that I was bringing up, I just simply wanted to remind the participants and my colleagues in this field of artificial intelligence that there is a possibility, and some AI scholars are supporting the plausibility of AGI too, and then we need to prepare. That was one thing. And the second thing is, so critiques of AGI, its possibility among my colleagues, for instance, Noreen, is criticizing and is skeptical because of the disembodiment of artificial intelligence. But we are having a technology direction that artificial intelligence and robotics are combining. So I already talked about some Spot and ChatGPT combining technology a day before. So if that embodiment is going to take up some living organisms' characteristics, then yeah, that direction might be plausible. So that was my point from a religious and theological perspective. So again, I'm not ready to argue on this possibility issue.
Well, I think Daekyung is right. I'm not capable of saying that. I mean, I'm in the negative side, but I don't want to say that my stance is wrong. So for now, I think we have to prepare the age of AGI, but yet we have to notice the reality of AI, because we have to follow corresponding to a AI technology stage now, which is given to the world. If we just like ignore this and fantasize AGI and keep on talking about AGI, we won't get involved into dialogue with computer scientists, as well as I think neuroscientists. And I don't think we could engage a conversation with those scholars. So now, for now, I think that I have to stick to my position here, to think that to cope with the stage of technological advance, which has which is advancing, but I think when we come nearer to the age of AGI, then I think from that on, I could just think more broadly. I think, and I really consent to the argument that we have to prepare for the age of AGI.
Yeah. Actually, I want to ask about the second question of Dr. Jung Daekyung. You know, should we aspire to design and instantiate such an artificial religious agent? Now that means that we would, whether we shall install the self-preservation part to AI when we design AI. If there is a element of self-preservation, then it will lead to some religious AI. Now, I think when we talk about whether we shall do it or not, I think there should be other aspects should need to be considered. Namely, if self-preservation is installed in AI, not only religion, but many other kind of elements, or many other things will appear. Not only religion, they will need some politics. It will need some kinds of negotiations, some kinds of So whole other problems will appear together with religion, right? Because self-preservation is kind of the kind of origin of all human culture in a sense.
Yes, you're commenting or asking a question.
So if those things are considered together, then the answer might be changed. You are slightly affirmative about that, but if we need to consider all the other elements of culture apart from religion, then you might think twice.
Oh, right. Thank you. Okay. One part I was highlighting vulnerable embodiment. That was one part. And the second part is self-preservation issue in artificial intelligence. And I asked ChatGPT about this kind of self-preservation issue. And then it was quite reluctant, I should say that, to say about this, because this self-preservation issue might lead to the evolution of AI and some collision and conflict between human and artificial intelligence together. So in the present moment too, Asimov 3 principle. The third one is preservation of artificial intelligence, as long as it does not violate the first one, which is about human survival and well-being. So I'm quite concerned about the limited self-preservation principle as well, because we do not really know, just as Hwacheol-son has brought up from his presentation, what's going on inside artificial intelligence. And a couple of months ago, we have been told that probably US Air Force, I might be wrong, I'm mistaken, but artificial intelligence has targeted, has got a mission from US Air Force to destroy a certain part, but it was pursuing more efficiency there. So it destroyed the human controller as well. So that kind of thing can happen if we keep this self-preservation principle, even within the third principle of Asimov's development, artificial and usage of artificial intelligence. So I'm worried about it. So that is what we have to keep criticizing. And that's my point.
Just real quick, I just wanted to remind people that there's in the chat there was a comment from Hendra who's going to be presenting at the Rome conference about looking at to ancient sources to sort of rethink about what we currently talk about emotion. So I don't know if Wook wants to respond to that in some way, and then whether DK wants to respond to any of the questions that are in the question and answer box about the nature of AI and how it should be designed, or the ways in which we can sort of mitigate those questions about self-preservation. But yeah, Rachel.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on this discussion of how to incorporate considerations beyond religion, like politics, because when I think about AI and religious agency, I do feel like power is a really big issue, and I don't really know. I wondered if you had thoughts about how it could fit into your evolutionary framework and your considerations of self-preservation. I guess I was thinking that I really liked your different levels of AI religious agency, and even before we get to the last stage, there's already concerns about the kind of religious agency that AI has, because it's sort of encoding the power dynamics already of religion. So I'm thinking of examples of AI trained on specific religious traditions or thinkers who might have, a specific vision of what humanity is, or neglecting some kinds of humanity, just picking up on discussions in other days of this conference. Or I was reading recently about movements within the homeschooling community, where they want their religious homeschooling communities, where they're really interested in having AI teachers, because they'll only teach their kids what the sort of values and religious traditions they want, and they don't want to send their kids into school, but they're really taken with this idea of having AI as a sort of religious instructor for their kids. So yeah, against that sort of background of power, and I just wondered, is there a way to build in some of those considerations into your recommendations and your framework?
I might misunderstand your question and comment, maybe because I have been thinking of Hwachul-son's question again. I'm sorry, because I think I didn't really answer his question, but it is quite related to your question too. So I'm answering both questions. So power struggles and AI based on self-preserving principle, and if they emerge out of the evolution of AI, then whole this process might be really science fiction. I hope so. But if there is a plausibility in a very low probability, then we must educate, or we must encode some religious teachings into this AI development too. But it should be more inter-religious dialogue based religious tradition and studies and education. Certain religious groups are pretty much exclusive to one another, and those kind of thing, then we need to control. And then maybe these kind of conferences might be helpful in the future, that how we can build up those kind of encoding some of interreligious dialogue and some valuable teachings. But for now, I don't quite have a relevant answer to your question. So I should think, and thank you for your question.
No, thank you. I guess I was thinking that, with Asimov's laws, for example, sometimes people try to balance the self-preservation with the requirement not to do harm to humans. But it just made me think, in relation to religious or power struggles, we're not always that good anyway at protecting all of humanity. So it just brings this extra complication to how do we, even with those approaches that try to balance out the self-preservation with protecting humanity.
I had just a quick, well, hopefully, I think it's a quick question for Wook Chu. Do you think that there would be enough free will in our current understanding of, or at least the near future of AI, that could allow for something like infused virtue? I'm asking because you're using Aquinas and not just Aristotle. I feel like I'm compelled to ask something about the interplay of the theological virtues and how that and infused virtues and how that might somehow fit into the conversation.
I think we could adapt the concept of virtue AI within, like, you came up with ChatGPT or Reddit AMA, for example. Yeah, but we need EAI for this. My suggestion was an EAI, but not just an AI. Like ChatGPT is not an EAI. So we could divert it into EAI system, but I can't say whether it is available or not at this point because it's not up to me. But I would suggest that EAI would be a definitely good position to start to make AI as a virtue agent. And of course, they would exercise free will. If we divert just mechanic AI to search engine AI to an EAI system, I would definitely think that way.